I want to start this deep dive with something that feels really personal. It's this constant ache that I think a lot of us feel. It's that feeling of emotional over-responsibility.
Hmm.
You know, that moment a friend or your partner is struggling, and the first thought that just tightens your chest is, if only I were different, or if I'd done that one thing better, this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
It's exhausting, constantly carrying the emotional weather for everyone.
It is an utterly exhausting place to live, and thank you for naming that with so much clarity.
Mhm.
It's the absolute signature of the emotional caretaker.
It is.
We are wired to care,
Yeah.
that impulse to soothe suffering. It's a beautiful, sacred thing. The problem, though, it starts when that desire,
Hmm.
it shifts. It
Hmm.
goes from being genuine compassion to this perceived obligation.
Right.
We just adopt this unconscious belief that if someone else is hurting, it's somehow our fault, or even worse, our immediate job to fix it.
Yeah.
And we confuse those two things completely.
Exactly. And it doesn't just feel like I want to help. It feels like if I don't jump in and stabilize them, I'm failing them. Or that their pain will somehow, I don't know, contaminate me or pull me down.
And that right there, that is the quiet drama we're really looking at today. That constant act of mistaking their pain for our own,
Mhm.
or believing our safety depends on their emotional stability.
Yes.
That's the moment we cross an invisible boundary, totally convinced that to care means we have to literally take on their burden.
Okay, let's unpack this boundary. Because for those of us who default to caretaker mode, that line it's completely invisible.
It is. What's so fascinating is to really get the distinction between genuine empathy and this debilitating ownership.
Okay.
Let's maybe use an analogy. Imagine you're standing on the bank of a perfectly calm river. The surface is just like glass, a perfect mirror of the sky.
I can picture that.
Now, if someone nearby, not you, throws a heavy stone into that water, ripples spread out immediately, right? They distort that perfect reflection. We feel that disruption.
And my immediate instinct, I can feel it right now, is to jump in and try to smooth the water with my hands. To just, intervene, restore the calm. I know that impulse so well.
That is the key reaction. That's it.
Yeah.
We feel the ripple, their emotional disturbance, and our deep embedded instinct is to think that the unsettled feeling we get is a sign that we have to step in.
That we have to fix the external thing to feel settled inside.
Exactly. But the external disturbance isn't yours. The ripple is just a sign that something is moving. It's not necessarily a sign that something is wrong with you.
So how do we stop that impulse to just jump in and start smoothing the water?
This is where we get to a core metaphor for awareness. Is your mind acting like a mirror, or is it acting like a sponge?
Okay.
The mind, when it's clear, is a mirror. It's designed to reflect everything that appears. Joy, sorrow, frustration. But it doesn't hold on to those images. A mirror doesn't absorb the anger, it reflects and say, okay, this anger is mine now.
But the ego.
The ego, our internal narrator, acts just like a sponge. It soaks up every single drop of external emotion. It convinces us that to care is to carry. If we soak it up, we feel justified, we feel valuable, like we're fulfilling some kind of contract of love.
I think I've been operating as a sponge for decades. And when I think about it, there's this hidden contract underneath all that caretaking. I always thought it was noble, but now I have to ask, is this nobility just fear in disguise?
That's a huge insight. And yes, we have to explore that. So often this urge is the ego wearing the robes of compassion. It's not true selfless kindness if it's rooted in this frantic survival mechanism that's saying, if I can just keep everyone calm and happy, only then will I be safe and loved and needed.
Where does that rule even come from, that my safety depends on their happiness?
It often starts in early childhood, when boundaries weren't clearly modeled.
Yeah.
We internalize this dangerous conditional equation. Their pain equals my failure. Maybe as a child, you learned a parent's mood was volatile, and the only way to get peace was to manage their emotions. So love becomes conditional. You only earn your belonging by being the stabilizing force.
Yeah, that makes the anxiety around their emotions feel suddenly less about them and way more about my own survival mechanism just kicking into high gear.
Precisely. And the adult realization, this is an insight from psychology and spiritual traditions like the Dharma, it's this massive liberating truth.
What's that?
You are not the cause of another person's emotional state, and you are absolutely not its cure. When we assume full responsibility for their whole complex life, it's a subtle kind of arrogance, isn't it? It assumes the world's emotional balance depends on you.
That is incredibly liberating to hear, but it also feels terrifying because the second I try to relax that grip, guilt just rushes in. That feeling of inadequacy, of failure when someone is sad. Why would the ego create this painful guilt if it's trying to protect me?
That's a brilliant question because guilt feels like punishment, not protection. But the ego creates guilt because it's obsessed with control. Guilt keeps you vigilant. It keeps you on high alert, scanning the horizon for disapproval, rehearsing apologies before anything has even happened.
So if I feel guilty, the ego has succeeded. It's kept me in my role as the good one, the reliable one.
Exactly. Guilt is the chain that links your sense of worth to their emotional state. In Buddhist thought, this is part of what's called upadana clinging. We think of clinging to objects, but we cling just as fiercely to roles, to emotional obligations. Guilt is just a loud symptom of fusing your entire self-worth with someone else's temporary emotional state.
So their sadness becomes proof that I've failed to perform my role as the perfect caretaker.
Yes. And that is what leads to this exhausting image you started with. Balancing dozens of baskets that were never yours to begin with. A partner's anxiety, a friend's grief. And the heaviest basket of all is the one labeled guilt for not balancing the others perfectly. That right there is the source of so much modern exhaustion. You end up haunting the edges of other people's lives, never fully living in your own.
Okay, so if the answer isn't jumping in to fix it or absorbing it, what is the action of true care? If I'm not fixing, am I not just being cold? Doesn't that feel like abandonment?
That's the core fear that keeps us stuck, isn't it? The fear of coldness. But true care, the middle way, is neither enmeshment nor abandonment. It's clear presence.
Clear presence.
True compassion isn't about redirection or absorption. Think of a tree beside a river. The tree supports life. It offers shade, it holds the soil, it gives shelter, but it doesn't try to redirect the river's flow. And it certainly doesn't leap into the water to stop the ripples. It just is. It offers grounded support.
That grounded stillness is what is so hard to find when that panic of over-responsibility kicks in.
And that's where the discipline comes in. It's why traditions emphasize training the mind, not just the behavior. There's a teaching in the Pali Canon, the simile of the saw. It basically says that even if a saw were cutting you limb from limb, the core instruction is to guard your own mind.
Wow.
The external circumstance, the pain, the distress is secondary. The primary work is maintaining your own inner stillness.
So the point isn't that I don't feel anything, it's that I don't let the external feeling shatter my internal ground.
Precisely. That stillness is the only ground from which genuine, non-transactional compassion can actually arise. Compassion that isn't clouded by panic or guilt or self-interest.
Guarding my mind, that sounds like the first really essential practical step. So how do I actually begin to do that in the split second that the guilt starts to flare up?
We shift the focus. We move from the cognitive story, the I failed story, to the body. We engage mindfulness or sati. Guilt is a powerful messenger. It's telling you a boundary has been blurred. So when that thought comes up, they're sad because of me, we just do pause. This is a crucial physical moment of interruption, a somatic inquiry.
A somatic inquiry. What does that actually look like in the moment?
It's entirely physical. It's designed to interrupt the mental story. So you pause, you place a hand on your heart or your stomach, just a simple grounding touch, and you ask a quiet internal question, is this mine to carry?
An inquiry, not a statement.
Yes. And then you just notice where the tension lives. Where did your body contract? Is it a tightness in the throat, a clenching in your jaw, heaviness on your shoulders?
Oh, for me, it's right in my stomach, that sort of heavy sinking drop.
Yes. The body contracts, preparing for a threat. By placing your hand there, you ground the experience.
Yeah.
Then you breathe into that physical space, not to make the guilt go away, but just to create some room around the emotion. The breath separates you from the narrative. Your hand on your heart is saying, I am here and I am safe, even with this feeling present.
That space is everything. It separates the story, I ruined their day, from the actual physical feeling of, here's guilt arising.
Exactly. And the emotion stops defining you because you stop feeding it with belief. In that space, you can see clearly that your friend's anxiety might be rooted in years of trauma or financial stress.
Yeah.
And only a tiny, tiny thread, if any, connects to you.
But there is still this powerful fear that lingers. It's so hard to trust other people to handle their own pain, even when they're capable adults. If I step back, how do I not make them feel abandoned?
That anxiety about abandonment, that is the voice of the ego. It believes that if you don't rescue them, you'll lose their love or you'll be judged as cold. But real love, the kind that helps people grow, it doesn't rescue, it accompanies.
Accompanies?
Compassion without fusion. That's the key. You can hold space for someone's grief or anger without needing to drown in it yourself.
So how do I communicate that? How do I create a boundary that feels supportive, not like a wall?
You honor their experience with your presence, not with your performance.
Yeah.
You don't need a frantic show of effort. If someone shares something heavy with you, a very powerful and practical phrase is simply, "Thank you for trusting me with this."
That's so simple and so grounding. It acknowledges them without immediately taking on the to-do list.
Exactly. And then you allow for silence. That silence is crucial. It honors their process. You shift your internal role from being a worker, constantly trying to solve things, to being a witness, just holding the space steadily.
That changes the whole dynamic. It lets me be steady instead of frantically searching for what to do next.
Think of it like being a wise gardener. When a plant is wilting, the novice gardener panics.
Yeah.
They overwater, they pull at the leaves, and they take the wilting personally. It reflects their inadequacy. But the wise gardener just observes. They check the soil, they check the light, and they water only when needed. They trust the process of growth. They don't take the wilting personally because they know the plant's struggle is its own journey.
Yeah, so the wisdom is in trusting their process instead of demanding that the plant stop wilting right this second.
Yes. And that brings us to the culmination of this whole journey. The guilt you feel, that heavy cloak. It isn't a wound, it's a portal. It's an active invitation to ask yourself, what truth about control or safety or my own worth am I avoiding right now?
And the truth is usually that I can't control them, and therefore I'm not safe.
That's the big one we resist. And it's so important to see that the ego, the part that built this whole system of over-responsibility, it isn't your enemy. It's an uninitiated ally. It built this system out of a deeply frightened love, believing it was the only way to keep you safe. Our job isn't to condemn it, but to initiate it into a new role, one based on integrity, not anxiety.
That completely reframes the internal fight. I don't have to battle the fear, I just have to reassign its job.
It does. And here's the final beautiful paradox in all of this. The moment you consciously release the need to fix others is the moment you become most capable of actually helping them. Your compassion expands because it's no longer a transaction. It's not a strategy for safety. It becomes an expression of freedom.
So the final clarity is that when we stop shrinking and apologizing for existing and trying to manage everyone, we actually give them permission to stand in their own truth too. What does that look like in a real relationship?
It looks like your boundaries becoming a powerful, gentle mirror. You're reflecting back to them. I am steady. I'm not breaking because you are sad. You too are allowed to feel what you feel, and you are capable of holding your own truth. Healing spreads through integrity, not through sacrifice. We meet another person as a true equal only when we stop carrying them.
I can feel that shift just hearing you say it. The difference between that desperate grip of the ego demanding control and the quiet, steady hum of awareness just accepting what is.
That quiet hum. That's the sound of your own sovereignty. Always remember the core awakening here. You are not responsible for how others feel, but you are entirely responsible for how you relate to that feeling. So that lingering presence of guilt, it's not a wound, it's an invitation. It points you back every single time to the truth of your own boundless nature, the part of you that has never, for a single moment, needed to earn love by becoming a sponge.